everyone. Welcome out to a new episode of Tax Sale Titans. I'm Shade Foray. I'm here with Stephen Swenson. This is actually episode number 11 for us of the podcast. We're going to be talking about some cool things tonight, including one of the top secrets, I think, in tax sale investing right now that most investors don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we just got done doing a training on it with our webinars. So here at the end of the podcast, stay and we're going to tell you about this strategy and some of the opportunities. We really think it's probably the best tax sale investing strategy for 2026. So before we start doing that, we want to give a shout out to all of our coaching members, all of our program members, any of our new advanced members, and also our members on YouTube and any subscribers. We appreciate all of you.
Yeah, we really do enjoy working with everybody. We enjoy listening to your situations and helping you figure out the best ways to move forward with tax sale investing. And also on Tax Sale Secrets, you guys are welcome to join on Tax Sale Secrets. You can subscribe now. Basically, we're going to be adding quite a few more videos, and so that should be something you'll see on a regular basis from us.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have two different YouTube channels. We have Tax Sale Secrets and we have Tax Sale Support. In fact, Tax Sale Support is kind of the father channel. Tax Sale Secrets is kind of the sister channel. With Tax Sale Support, we've been putting out videos since around 2007. So we've been doing this a long time. We've been teaching investors how to be able to do tax sale investing. And that's kind of what we want to highlight in these podcasts. In fact, we're looking at doing the podcast directly after our weekly webinar training with our members each week and going live and then doing this podcast as well. And so for tonight, what we want to do is a couple of different things. We want to look at a post auction and review some properties that sold. We want to look at an upcoming auction. We want to talk about a couple important topics and trainings. So we're going to start with looking at an auction that took place last month in Washington.
Yeah, in Grays Harbor, Washington. So we're going to go and review that right now here. All right, let me get that pulled up here. Let's drag it over.
So this is an auction that took place, and one thing that was kind of unique about this is that there was many properties that sold for close to the minimum bid amounts. And this is something that we've seen over the last 60 to 90 days, is we're seeing less competition in a bunch of different auctions, which means that investors are able to pick up property for a lot cheaper than they did even 6 months ago. So as a new tax sale investor, right now is a great time to be getting involved with it and bidding on property.
Yeah, now what we have, there are a total, so this was offered through Bid for Assets too, so it's not like it was offered on some tiny, site, a fairly well-known website, and that normally there have been lots of competitive sales on Bid for Assets, but there are 58 properties in this sale starting at about $1,700, and we have all of the properties that are listed here. And so what's interesting is, we can go and we can click on each one of the properties. So look at the first property here, and we can see about how many bids each one of the properties get. And as we can see, so this property had 24 bids. That might seem like a lot, but not compared to a lot of the sales that we see. I mean, it was enough to increase the bid from $8,000 opening up to $16,000. But again, not that much, for a property that is, has an assessed value of $129,000. It's not that much at all to bid that up, and so properties really were bidding up very little compared to most cases. And we see this property itself is actually, this one's a commercial property, that is it's paved lot between two other commercial buildings, and it's even fenced. And so this property's value is, if the assessed value of the county is 120 or 30,000, the market value is going to be a lot higher than that. And this is a usable property that you could probably rent out if you wanted to keep it long term.
Yeah. In fact, we were just talking with our membership about how to be able to buy property like this, and that would be a great example. We have an address there. We've got photos of the property. We have different map views as well. We can go look up this property in the county record information. But like Shade said, you know, it has an assessed value of 130. I would imagine, in fact, we actually talked about this property a few weeks ago on a different webinar. I would imagine, and kind of from the research that we gathered, this lot is worth 150 to $200,000, maybe even more. And so, like Shade said, you could sell it and somebody could build it, or you could, they bought it for cheap enough that you might even be able to rent it out to somebody who wants to use it for a car lot, or somebody who, you know, wants to store something in it. But it is in a pretty good location, and overall is a great piece of land that was picked up for less than 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, really, you know, picked up for very little, you know, compared to the value of the property. That's really interesting. You know, they have some different properties here. You know, different properties redeem as they often do here before sales. And so we had different ones that were close, but redeemed last minute. And let's just look here at some other solds we have. So here's another property here that sold for 13,000. Let's pull this property up, and we can see. So this one had 18 bids total. You know, enough. It took it from about $6,700 opening to about 13,000. So again, didn't bid up that high. Here we've got an address here on the property right there, and then let's go down here. We can see. So it is land with improvements. There's a house on it. We can see. Let's look at the house image here. So there is an image of the house. Looks like it has like a wheelchair accessible entry there, but the house itself in this image, it looks really clean. Like the roof looks good. It looks like it's been painted there recently. You know, it had some updates or some upgrades to it even.
Yeah, we've got to look at the outside to try to make a determination of what the interior looks like. And so, you know, in this case, we can go ahead and check the property on Google Street View, get an idea of the condition at that time. We're looking at the roof, we're looking at the foundation, we're looking at the exteriors, we're looking at the windows, we're looking at the doors. If it's vacant, we're looking for any open doors. We're looking around the neighborhood as well to see what type of properties are around it. And so this really looks like a pretty nice little street. You know, it's kind of a little quiet neighborhood. There doesn't seem to be, you know, any major damage to the property. This was from 2024, so it's a couple of years old. But we know at that time, you know, it was a livable property.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the outside of it there, for being 2 years old, the roof looks great. You know, and even things like the windows, the rest of the house, you know, they had the siding updated or they repainted it. They did one or the other, and obviously this wheelchair accessible entry has, you know, not been there forever. And so those are both, you know, good signs and things to see. With the property, this one sold for 13,000, which is not very much. I mean, it has an assessed of 120 or 1,000 or so. Let's just see what. So Zillow puts the estimate at 168, which is
Yeah, we can see it's 2-bedroom, 1 bath, you know, a little over 1,000 square feet. And, you know, it's basing it off of the comparables. We can go down and look how this property has gone up in value. It kind of peaked out at about 185 back in 2002. And that kind of makes sense. That was kind of right there at the pandemic. It's leveled out a little bit, but it looks like it's kind of continuing up.
And let's just see real quick if there's a difference in how the sites here. Oh, interesting. And so they put it at 192 on Redfin. You know, so they give it $25,000 more, roughly, is about where they're placing the value on it. Between those two, though, I mean, if you consider the fact they got the property for 13,000, this property is excellent. I mean, you know, they paid less than 10% of value for it, which is almost impossible to do with properties that are usable like this one, which this one appears to be usable. Now we'd want to send somebody out to get images of it to see, you know, images of it currently today, just to make sure. But if it still looks anything like this, you know, they really hit a home run on this.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, even if you're looking at it from a condition standpoint, you know, we would get those current photos like Shade said, but unless something is major something major has happened to the property over the last 2 years, even if it's sat vacant, there's going to be some, some things that have happened. But if the structure is still sound, picking it up for that price, we can go ahead and do an as-is sell, where we turn around and sell the property as is. We could go ahead and fix the property up. We could rehab the property. We could go ahead and just clear the title and then sell it to another investor with a warranty deed. And so either way, this is going to be a great deal, whether they're plan on rehabbing the property, using it as a rental, or just turn around and selling it. Let's say they picked it up for 13 grand and they turn around and listed it for 50 grand. They could probably sell this property in a week at 50 grand. And then they've taken that 13 grand. Now they have 50 grand that they can put back into more tax deed deals.
Yeah, in fact, I almost guarantee that they could sell the property there in that time or less, just because it would be such a crazy deal, in this area. So here we can see a property that bid up a bit. Now this one did bid up, quite a bit from where it started at. This is one. Okay, here's one that doesn't really actually make sense. So there are, even though this auction didn't have as competitive bidding, there were still investors that paid up a bit for specific properties. This kind of being one of them, where they paid $17,000 for this property here. That now again, they're not going to lose money on this deal because it looks like it's a building lot valued with an assessed value of about $22,000. Let's see the image here on it. Yeah, we can see it's just like a building lot here that's near other homes.
Well, and sometimes it's kind of interesting to look into who the bidders were, because it could just be two bidders. So maybe everyone else, stopped bidding at around 6 grand, but you had two bidders that both wanted the property. In fact, let's go ahead and look at the address and see if we can see if there was a reason why they were willing to pay up. Because just because it says 22,000, that doesn't mean that that's what the market value is. That's what the county is assessing against it as far as property taxes are concerned. It could be a $60,000 lot. It's all going to depend on what the actual market value is.
Oh, it's interesting. It does appear to be. So one thing about the property right off the bat is you can see that it has the potential for to have different zoning, because it sits in between, a business here. It looks like, I don't know if this is a food bank here currently, and then residential, homes, which are, right to the other side of it.
Yeah, I actually think it's a thrift shop and a food bank. I think there's kind of two buildings there. But Shade's absolutely right. It's going to be zoned right next to residential. It's going to be zoned with commercial, which gives us some flexibility in turning around and reselling it. So it does look like those are some more. Oh, that's a business too. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it's just studio apartments. I bet it's studio apartments.
Oh
Acre
yeah. How about it?
Studios.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Probably is.
that's a twin home as well, which means that we could actually probably put like a small apartment building on there, or duplexes, or a triplex or a fourplex. And so that could bring additional value, and that's probably the reason they're paying up for the property. Sometimes you'll have developers and builders that will go ahead and buy a lot like this, then build on let's say a fourplex, and then turn around and sell that fourplex after, because they know that they're picking up the land and it's a good location for it. So that very
Yeah.
well could be the reason they paid up.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting property that we're looking at there. Yeah, there were a couple of them where they paid up. The other one where I saw somebody pay up here. Again, even when they pay up, they're not losing money. But even this one wasn't that high of bids. But this is an example of how when an investor or a couple of investors want it, they can bid the price right up. Considering this only started at $10,000, had 27 bids, but it sold for $195. And let's see here. We can see that the value of the property is listed as $45,000 in land value, and then $198,000 in improvement value, for a total of $243,000. And there's also about $6,000 worth of about $6,000 worth of additional things that are owed. There's a $4,700 in utilities and $1,300 in community club dues, that are owed. So they actually paid a little bit more than what they even showed there. and we can see the house right here.
Well, and part of the reason why the county is able to provide that is that most of the Washington counties actually do a title search on the property. So they don't have it listed here, but I bet we can go back to the county and find the title search, or at least contact the county and have them give us the title search. But that helps us know which liens are going to stick on the property. So, you know, automatically we already know that there's going to be about $7,000 in additional liens that are going to need to be paid, even though it's gone through a judicial foreclosure, because those are going to be government issued.
Yeah, so the other thing we're going to do real quick here is I'm just going to see the value here real quick. And actually, this one has interior photos here. You have to look and see when these were added, but we can see this is actually, so there's a reason why they're willing to pay up for this property. And the reason they're willing to pay up for it is because it was built in 2004. You know, so it's 20 years old, but it's much newer than any of the other properties that are there. Valued there at $275 on Zillow, which, let's see our images here.
Yeah, people paid up because of these images. You know, we don't know when these were taken. That's the reason we'll go back and look back and see when it last sold, so we can get an idea of when these photos were taken.
Oh, in July of 2017.
Yeah, so we're looking at pretty old photos. We don't know what condition it is, but that at least gives us an idea of what it was at that time.
Yeah, and they had the property valued at about 289,000. So again, these guys didn't make a ton of money on it. They got a good deal on it. In terms of what they paid, but I mean, they didn't let this one go cheap. They paid up for this one and paid about 3/4 of market value for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but I don't think I would have paid more than. I definitely wouldn't have paid more than 50, maybe not even more than 40 or 45. I mean,
Yeah,
it's nice, but it looks like it's been sitting vacant. If you go down to the Google Street View, it seems like there was a bunch of trees and brush in front of it, maybe.
yeah. It looked like it was totally overgrown there trying to get into the place. And maybe, it still looks like this just fine. Maybe the house is, that's what you need to send somebody out there to really find out, is to make sure that it is still in good condition here. We don't even know if it's occupied or not. And so it's something that we could figure out here as well. But the property itself is pretty nice. But like Steve was saying, I wouldn't want to pay more than, well, we probably would have maxed out somewhere around 50% of value. And even then we'd have to consider the other things that were owed on it. So we probably would have bid a little bit below that.
Yeah, well, an on-site evaluation would have made a big difference as well. And what we're trying to show you as we look at these different examples of, what are we looking for? What are red flags? And using real properties to show good deals and deals where people overpaid, because you're always going to find people that overpaid in auctions, but you're also going to find those good deals. And that's the type of deals that we want to focus on. We want to bid and acquire these properties that we're able to pick up at the right price. If something bids above our price, then we just let it go, because we know there's going to be another property that's going to be coming up for auction next month, next week.
Yeah, holy cow, look at this one. So this one, they really kind of paid up for this property in a lot of ways, because they paid $61,000 for it. And as you look at it, it has like another $8,000 worth of things that are owed on it, and the mobile home is not included in the parcel with the sale. So it's just the land, that they're getting, which again the county says valued at 65,000. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's worth a little bit more than that, but they really paid up for what is essentially just a vacant lot.
Yeah, grab that lot and let's see if there's anything, if Ocean Shores is there's anything special about it, because I'm wondering if they didn't realize the mobile home was not in it. Because if you look at the improvement value, there's an improvement value there. And, this may have very well been two different owners that bidded on this property thinking that they were going to be getting the mobile home as well. It's in a nice location, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is right there, right there near the ocean here. I think that's what we're looking at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, yeah, it's cut. It has water on both sides of it there within a quarter mile, half mile.
It looks like you've got hotels and golf courses,
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And
but it's
you
definitely a junk property, or I mean, needs work. Go down to the street view.
you're probably right about somebody not knowing, that it's not included. At least maybe somebody would pay 60,000 just for the lot by itself. Maybe they've got their own trailer they want to put on there, but there's a good chance they're probably thinking that that was included with it.
Well, and they
80 grand.
probably looked. What does Zillow say it's valued?
Let's see. Let's take a look here. Zillow says it's valued at 149. Which again, if the house is not included, then that's going to be wrong. And 166, on this one.
There could be a whole story behind this that we don't understand, and that's where we'd find out some of those answers in due diligence. But I would imagine that this property owner or the bidder on it, at least both, probably two bidders, thought that the mobile home was included. They didn't even read all the information. And, and one thing that they didn't understand is because the mobile home's not included, you're going to have to get the old owner or whoever owns the mobile home to remove the mobile home from the lot. And so if they refuse to do that, that could be an extra 10 or 15 grand to be able to move it. You're also going to need to notify them and give them notice of moving it. So you're going to have a process. It's a big lot. Look how big that lot is.
Yeah, it's a double lot there. When it looks like you only need one, at least at some time you only needed one. So it is kind of a double one. It does include all of that. So it's actually all this junk. It's all this stuff and all this stuff over here.
Yeah, it could be the lot, but that's where you've got to look more into the story about it. It looks more than we would have paid though,
Yeah,
because of the risk involved. I mean, even though you're just getting the land, you've still got the mobile home on the property. You've still got to deal with that. And it's not like it's a newer mobile home. If it was a nicer mobile home, then maybe we'd try to buy it from them. But even then, that's going to have to be some type of negotiation. So by buying this deal, they're not done now. Even if the property was occupied, you could go through and try to work with them to be able to do cash for keys and get them to move out. Maybe they buy it from you or rent it from you. If not, you're going to have to evict them. So there is going to be some process, but in here, you've got a structure that you've got to remove off your property if you want to try to resell it.
yeah, that would be a pain there. And the other $9,000 too on top of what they've already paid, they have to pay as well on the property there. What a mess. I would not want to be involved with that one. Okay, let's see here. And any others here you want me to check out?
I think we've seen some good examples. We've seen some examples that look a little bit risky. And that's kind of what tax sale is. Tax sale investing is. You're going to have good opportunities and you're going to have properties that you've done some research on that end up selling for more than we would have paid. And then you're going to get some of those deals where you're able to hit it out of the park. And it's important, to set your high bid amounts and stick to them. In fact, we put out a video on YouTube a little while ago about emotional investing. And at 42 grand, is that the house?
Yeah, they won, and this is not the only house that this person won. This person won a couple of different houses, but yeah, this one started at 15,000. It had 21 total bids, sold for 42,000. It has a complete address right here, and it also has 10 acres of land with it as well. You can see right here. So we have land
County
value.
value 200.
Yeah, land value there of 60,000, improvement value of 145. For a total value of 204. Let's see, we've got a second parcel image here as well. That's a little bit older image here of the house. And if we want to see, let's see where it is, see what the GIS on it looks like.
I think there's a link down there you can click on too. It might not have it set in though.
Oh, that's right. Just click on this and it'll come right up. And so it's that land right there. It makes sense, this stuff across the street, some of it is going to be floodland, or it's probably going to be marshlands or something like that. But you can see that it does include essentially 3 separate lots here on both sides of the road, and you've got all of your improvements on the one there to the bottom right.
Yeah, that far right lot, maybe part of that may be buildable, but I might go ahead and subdivide them and sell off the 2, other lots, and then keep the home there as well.
Yeah, but for $40,000 though, they did pretty well here on buying it. Just from what we can see so far, let me see what it is valued at here roughly. Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong information.
I'm interested to see if there's a street view and what across the street looks like, how wet it is.
Okay, let's see here.
Oh, it's a lake almost.
Yeah, we might have a trouble seeing it. Oh, there's an elevation difference here too. Yeah, it looked like there was a road. That's probably it right there. At least from looking at this image here, it looked like there was.
Oh, see how it comes over way.
Oh yeah, so it's probably from the other side over here. Or yeah, you can see the entryway right there. That's what it is. It's this little road right here. Oh, there you go, and you can see the
Yeah.
property actually. See if I can get a little bit closer here to get a better image here of it. Yeah, they had some roof stuff sitting up there.
I think there's 2. Looks like there's an older property, maybe a garage, and then right behind that is you can see the gray roof of the house. Somebody's out there weed whacking back in 2024. See how there's the gray house behind it?
Yeah.
So there's 2 buildings on the property. One obviously needs some more work than the other.
Yeah, that is interesting. And then, yeah, it includes part of that, which it probably, yeah, it is just like a lake, essentially.
Marshland.
Yeah, marshland there. Uh, let's see the value on it real quick. And 267, that's what they're putting the value at.
And we've got some
1960s.
not interior, but we've got some additional photos as well. Let's look at it a little bit. Oh, there's that other house. Now that would be our biggest worry at this point, is that extra house that's on the property, is that going to make or break the deal? At 44 grand, it looks like a pretty good deal, especially if we're just looking at the house, even if we've got to rehab it because it's got a high value. But that structure property, the other one, if we had to demolish that, what is it going to cost us? Let's say it's 20 grand to do it. It's kind of expensive. Well, at that price, they paid 40 grand, maybe they're into it 100 grand, 150 grand. They could still make 150 grand off of it. And that's demolishing the other property and completely rehabbing the home.
Yeah. Oh, it has a 2-car garage that was built in 2002. So that part of it is new. The views of your pasture. Huh, that is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it has the potential to work there, because they paid a low price. They probably have some options there with a property like that. But again, that's really the advantage of getting properties there for good low amounts with a limited amount of bidding on them, so they don't get bid up too high.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll go back and talk a little bit about over the counters, land banks. Then we're going to go look at some land banks. Then to finish it off, we're going to go look at an upcoming auction, check out a couple of properties as well. So in over-the-counter investing has kind of changed over the last 5 or 10 years or so, and part of that has to do with online auctions. Online auctions have made have decreased the amount of over-the-counter property just based on the fact that there's more people that can go ahead and bid on tax deeds, tax liens, and so if more people can bid on it, more property are going to get purchased, which means that there's going to be less over-the-counters available. Now, there's still good strategies that we can implement to purchase over-the-counter properties, but we need to be more targeted than we generally are.
Yeah, so one of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight is, I think, one of the aspects of tax sales that is still least understood among all of the different aspects of it is the nature of the deeds. The clouded title, or
I think this is last week's.
Oh, you know what?
This topic may be wrong. It should be over the counters.
Oh, you know what?
Is the next slide show over the counter?
Wait a second here.
I just may have screwed up on the title slide. Those might be right. We just need to look at the next slide.
Oh, okay. Let me just see here.
Yeah, I just screwed up on the title slide. So okay. We're going to be talking about over-the-counter and land banks today.
All right. Well, excellent. All right. So yeah, that is actually something that's changed quite a bit. Over-the-counter investing 20 years ago was different because all of the auctions were in person and were live, and so there was always a limited number of people that could attend any given event. So over-the-counter was very common. You would find it almost in every part of the country. But online auctions were also coming around that same time, and that has changed the county's ability to get the properties in front of more buyers. Fundamentally, one of the things that counties have always struggled with was drawing in enough investors, to buy up all of their tax sale properties, at least historically in the past. Before the internet, when they were just relying on locals, they were advertising in local newspapers, but it wasn't like they had out of area investors that were coming in there to buy up property. So in many cases, they would have more tax sale inventory than they had investors that would show up there to buy. And when that happened, they would, they had no choice really but to put those properties back on their books and to look at other ways they might sell them, which would end up being over-the-counter opportunities for investors.
Yeah, exactly. So there still is over-the-counter opportunities, but it's not like it was maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago in some states, because those states have started offering online auctions. Let me give you an example like Arizona. For many years, we could go to Arizona because, none of the counties had online auctions, which means you just had local investors there, which means that you had a ton of over-the-counter tax liens that you could purchase after the auction. Now those auctions have moved online. There's going to be less over-the-counter. It doesn't mean that there's still not that opportunity, but there's going to be less of it. Now, one thing to understand about over-the-counters is that term isn't going to be used anywhere. When we're talking about over-the-counter property, there can be a lot of different terminology that's used depending on that particular state. So if we're talking about Texas, for example, we're not going to talk about over-the-counter. We're going to use the keyword or the terminology of struck-off property. Struck-off property is the terminology they use. So when we're looking for over-the-counter properties in Texas, we're going to use struck-off. So when we talk about over-the-counter, that's not necessarily how the county refers to their leftover property.
Yeah, it is. It's more a term that investors use to describe how they're purchasing the property, or the fact that it's available after the sale for direct purchase. But the specific, I guess, the specific terminology that they use is the same terminology that's in state law. So if you're investing in a certain area, it's worth pulling up the state law for the area there. And reading through state laws for that area on property tax enforcement, so that you kind of understand all different aspects of how it works, and you'll understand their terminology there for their over-the-counter and essentially how it works, because over-the-counter investing is it's available in a lot of places throughout the country, but not everywhere. There's some places that literally will not offer properties after the sale direct to investors. Instead they'll do subsequent sales. or something like that, because they're not allowed to sell them to individuals privately.
Yeah, California is a good example of that, where they don't offer over the counter, they have resales. But in any of these states that do have over the counters, we can go ahead and look through their inventory and see what possible tax liens or deeds are available that are worth buying. Now, we talked a little bit about how these online auctions have made over the counter investing less prevalent than it was 10 years ago. Which means that we need to focus on states that still have good over-the-counter opportunity. Let me give you kind of one little example. Nebraska, for example. Nebraska is a tax lien state, but there's only one county there that holds online auctions, which means that there's going to be a number of different other counties within that state. Or South Carolina, that's another example that don't hold online auctions. So you're just going to have local inventory there or local people bidding there, which means that there's going to be some over-the-counter opportunities there because they're not, massively using online auctions.
Yeah, in fact, it is becoming quite a bit more common here. Now, where you're going to be looking at for a lot of, at least if it's an auction, you'll be going to the calendar. If it's over the counter, we have an over the counter section, so you may be paying attention to the auction. A lot of times, over the counter opportunities come up after sales are done, and so you're working off of original tax sale lists, when you start. But otherwise, you're going to be, getting an over-the-counter list for properties inventory for basically any of the inventory that the county has on file that is essentially owned by the county. That's really what most of the over-the-counter inventory is. Now, counties historically, many of them struggled to deal with this because suddenly they were overwhelmed with, inundated with just tons of properties, that they ended up acquiring, and they really don't have the ability to manage it very well. And that is where land banks have started to come in here over the last 20 years. Uh, about, I would guess 20 years ago, roughly, I think some of the counties started to figure out that they needed additional help. And so what the land banks are is they're basically nonprofits that the county can legally set up to help them manage over their over-the-counter inventory. And these land banks, that is their primary job, is helping them do this. So for the county, selling this stuff has always been just kind of a side gig. It's been something that they do because they have to, but and that's also part of the reason why they're not necessarily great at it. The land bank is better at it. They're better at advertising the properties, at working with sellers, because this is what they do. And they can also help the community out and focus on local buyers more so. That they're the ones that will tend to look for ways to benefit the community more so than you would at a normal tax sale.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, essentially, they're nonprofits that are set up to advertise, to sell these properties. So they're going to put a lot more into it than the county is, where they just have inventory sitting on their tax sale list. Now, one of the advantages of being a member of taxsalesupport.com is, like Shade said, you're going to have access to our auction calendar. You're going to have access to our over-the-counter tax liens, tax deeds, and redemption deeds. But you're also going to have access to all of the different land banks that are located in different areas across the country. So every month we're looking to see what new land banks have been added or created over the last 60 days or so, and then we're collecting all that information and making it available to our members. Now, with these land banks, because they are set up to essentially put these properties back into productive use, there's going to be all different types of properties. We can have land, we can have commercial property, we have structures. Instead of having a property sit vacant and unattended, the land bank will secure it. They'll make sure that people aren't living in the property, and so it's really a safety hazard as well when these properties are sitting vacant. So a lot of these cities have said, hey, let's figure out how we can take these properties that have been defaulted because of property taxes or whatever reason, and let's put them back into productive use. And so as tax sale investors, this is a great strategy for us to be able to acquire these properties, pick them up, turn around, rehab them, and buy them through these different organizations. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go take a look at a couple of different land banks that are available. There's about 200, 250 of them in the United States. So there is a lot of opportunity that's not really thought of or considered as much by most tax sale investors is the amount of property and inventory that is available through land banks.
Yeah, in fact, we'll pull it up here right now here. And so under membership here is where we're going to find it. And if I scroll down here, it is right there. And we have them listed here alphabetical order. Although, like Steve was saying, they're a new enough thing and they're getting added all the time as well that it's worth just doing you know, if you're buying properties within a certain state, it's worth looking to see if there are land banks that are being set up in you know, in the areas that you're focused on, because they are, you know, becoming more and more common here, and they are going to manage all that inventory, including, you know, properties. I mean, there are some properties, improved properties like homes, that that counties get, and rather than just letting them sit and become more dilapidated, you know, or eventually need just to be demolished, counties can figure out, they can go in, they can see what kind of work needs to be done. They'll actually have a complete write-up for what the work required is on the property, so that you can get quite a bit more information about it when you go to buy. So in some ways, they can provide you with lots more information than you would be able to get just through the regular tax sale. That's one of the benefits that they can offer us.
Yeah, in fact, to kind of tell you a quick story, it was a few years ago. We went to an auction in New York, and when we go out with our students to attend auctions, one thing that we do is we go look at on market deals. So just good investment properties that are being listed through the MLS or with the realtor. And we went and looked at some of the properties Shade actually did, and come to find out these were actually properties that were available through that local land bank. And so it was interesting that some of the properties that we were going to look at with a realtor actually ended up being land bank properties. And we actually had students that, looked at some of those deals and worked out some deals with the land banks to be able to buy them and rehab them.
Yeah, I mean, we were working with a good realtor there in the area, and the realtor was showing us different properties that you know, different properties that needed work, you know, or fixer uppers basically, and properties that they had a lot of movement, you know, they could on the you know, the selling price as well. And we didn't know even at that point that they were land bank properties. It wasn't until we wanted to submit an offer on one of them and we could see who the actual owner of the property was, we realized that, you know, these were land bank properties, and that the county had basically signed up the services of local realtors, you know, in order to show and to help get these properties sold. And so yeah, that was interesting, and it also a very effective way for the county to get the properties back out into the market again. Because again, you know, they're being shown just like any other property. And what's nice about that is then it's suddenly not like a tax sale. We can go in and view the property, you know, because we've got permission to be there. You know, basically the agent was able to let us in, and so we could see the properties on the inside. And what was interesting too is that some of the properties were properties that people had been doing repairs on. You know, so the inside, rather than them being, you know, they'd been gutted of any of the stuff that, you know, they wanted to get removed there. And I think one of the properties we were looking at was like had a fire in it, and you know, the owner previously had replaced a lot of the beams in the ceiling and a lot of the wood there, and had already done most of the hard work for something like repairing, you know, a past fire. But it was way more interesting being able to see that stuff in person. And you know, obviously, if you were serious about the deal there, you would want to be able to see it in person like that, rather than just needing to guess because all you have is images.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever we're looking into an area, we're going to look into the market a little bit. When it comes to Shelby County, the medium sales price for a home is around 210 to 250,000. It looks like that they have around they predict about a 1.8% increase over the next year. So it's not an incredibly fast market, but it is an up market, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So, we're not looking at a market where property prices are drastically falling. We're looking at a pretty stable market, which means that it's overall going to be a pretty good place to be able to pick up property kind of in that Shelby County area.
Oh, I think that's what it was calling itself here. It's on 3779 Station Street here in Memphis. Oh yeah, I think it is. So it's gonna be station away. That's probably gonna be our address here on. You can see that some of the units here, we're looking at 3779. So it is that one on the end. That's kind of interesting. Well, let's see.
It looks like it's some type of commercial.
Yeah, it kind of does. At least it has commercial stuff right next to it. Let's see. So we have a Zillow estimate there of 42,000. It was built in 1973. It's about 1,300 square feet. That seems low, but let's.
Yeah, I thought that seems low to me too.
You know, let me try to leave that other way here and see if it does anything different there. No, it didn't. You know what we'd need to do? I guess, who knows? Let me pull up that one here. Let's see if they're basing the comps here on other units that have sold. Yeah, actually, they may just be accurate. You know, I mean, just the value of those properties that are selling for a little bit less here. You know, because they do have some comparables that look like they're from the same complex.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But you know, this one again, this is like an over-the-counter property though, essentially, and it's for 22,000. So even at the value, you know, that we're looking at there, it's offered for about half of that amount. You know, which you could look at and figure out whether or not this is any kind of a deal that's worth going after. We're always very cautious of over-the-counter deals because we recognize the fact that the properties have been offered through auctions before. And so again, sometimes, you know, that leaves, you know, the properties that are left over sometimes have issues. And so we have to sift through more properties sometimes in order to find the good ones.
Yeah, one of the advantages though to the land bank is they'll many times have more information about it. So we may be able to go and view the property. You know, we may be able to have a printout of what needs to be done to the property. You know, every land bank isn't created equal. They're all going to have different rules. They're all going to have different procedures. And so some you can get a full printout of everything that's wrong on the property before you even buy it and what needs to be done. Others will have limited access, and then many of them you can go and actually view the property. So you're going to need to look at that individual land bank on what their rules are. Some of them will have a set price, but you can submit offers lower than that set price. So if you find one that looks interesting, the list looks interesting, you know, get into the rules and information a little bit to determine what the qualifications are to be able to buy in that land bank.
Oh, there we go. This is how we would do it here is we can get the property status right here. So we could look for the stuff that is just for sale because they have out of all the properties that are listed here, they also include deals that have already sold and ones that were canceled. So there's a lot of stuff there to look at. That's why we're going to look for just the for sale stuff here. We'll narrow us down here to a couple thousand properties. And then we could also, if we wanted to do it on something else, let's see.
In fact, last night we were looking at some properties here on Shelby County with our coaching students, and you found a couple of really good pieces of land, you know, that looked like it was great, great location, great size, and you know, from the little research that we did, looked like it was a good price as well.
Yeah, in fact, let's pull up here again. So now we're looking at the properties that are for sale and looking at them from size in acres and kind of working our way down in size. And so some of these properties have high asking prices because they're very large pieces of property that maybe include a lot of acres. So for example, click on Horn Lake here and see. So this one's 9 acres, you know, 36,000. And let's see, let's grab, there's our parcel ID right there. I'm gonna copy that there, and then you know, I'm gonna add in that search here. All right, perfect. Now I can plug that parcel number in. And here we go. All right, so we can see that is the property. Let's look it up on the map view. And there we go. There it is on the map view. And actually what we could find there is And there's a house right next to this on this Horn Lake Road. There's a commercial, maybe a school or something, I can't tell, to the left of it here. But yeah, if we wanted, we could probably figure out which house that is and see what the cross street here is. Horn Lake Road and Shelby Drive.
Yeah, there's literally thousands of available properties in this county. In fact, I was telling this story to our coaching students, but one of our coaching students, I think, bought, over 30 properties from this land bank in 1 year, and sold 80% of them on eBay for, 500 to 1,500% returns on his money.
Oh, there we go. It's this lot right there. So you can see, actually, this is the one that's right next to it. Let's see it's a huge grass field here right next to it, and some, in a commercial complex right there. And I think there's your house right there. That's on the other side of it. And then I think it's this piece right here that goes, you can see it kind of connects the forest here to the rest of it, I believe.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's right next to a big commercial property, to the north of it, or the whatever direction it is. Looks like there's newer construction.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there is actually a fair amount of newer construction. I mean, this was a construction. This is a good example here of somebody subdividing a piece of property for building. As you can see in here, there's no more lots left. I mean, they used up everything that was there, but this was a whole complex here of duplexes or fourplexes that they built right there, and it's not too far away.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be, a couple different opportunities with it, whether it be commercial or residential.
yeah, and we could get additional information here about it if we wanted. But let's see here. Now, at the same time, let me scroll back here one. And let me go back there. We'll look at one more property here. So let me do it by. Okay, good. That one's still set up there by status here. So let me just do it by acreage right here. And size in acres. Okay, there we go. Give it a second here to reload. And we'll look at some of these other properties. So varying amounts here. Oh, actually, those are all the ones. Oh, you know what? It did not do this here for me. Let me switch this over here on. There we go, parcel status. There we go, for sale. Now we can apply it. Okay.
Yeah, these are going to have different filters that you could filter out property types, if it's pending, if it's for sale. They're going to have a lot of these different filters and layers that you can use to help you narrow down the list, especially with a big option like this where there's thousands of properties. How do we narrow that down to find properties that meet our objective?
Yeah, let me just grab that number real quick. This one looks like it's 8.78 acres. Let's see what it is here real quick. All right, we can paste that in. And if we want, we can see other information like, look at sales history here on the property if we want. And we can see that, look, there was something there, maybe a tax deed or a different kind of deed. Let's pull up the, oh, how do I back out of that? That's all right. Pull up here again, and then we just click on the view there, and we'll see the property from here. And oh yeah, look at that one. This one's kind of interesting because it's kind of landlocked, but it also looks like, like it has the potential there to be subdivided. Yeah, it is kind
Yeah,
of a bright. You can see the two roads there, where they should intersect. It should have accessibility there in some way, but like it's been planned, but there's just paper roads right now.
yeah, you'd have to. You can see that there's the road right there, and then there's a lot right above the road, close to the subdivision, kind of up there at the very top. And you'd have to either expand the road from the road on the left-hand side out to the property, or you'd have to come in from that subdivision to the north of the property and get an easement or something through that other property to access it. But if in looking at a deal like this, as tax sale investors, we're creative. Will you go back there for just a second? Oh, you
Yeah.
already opened. Okay, it's fine. As tax sale investors, we're looking at these different deals and we're trying to figure out how can we be creative. This is a creative investment strategy, but let's say that other owner you were able to work out a deal with where they would subdivide, where they would go ahead and make that into new construction or buildable lots as well. And so it would be beneficial to them to subdivide into lots. And so maybe they would allow you the easement to be able to access that property.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right, let's see here if there's any more here we want to check out real quick. It is kind of obnoxious how it resets that after every time you do it. I wish there was a way here to
There might be a back button or something. Well, and there's so many of these different land banks, available. I was just looking in Kansas City, Kansas a little earlier today and looking at some of their properties and some New York land banks.
Yeah, I mean, there are some of these places have hundreds of properties in their land banks because they've been accumulating for years, and that maybe they're kind of difficult to work with, or maybe it takes a while to get information from them. Whatever it is, whatever the hang up is, it tends to be part of the issue. And so if you're just willing to be patient through that, there's lots of opportunities there that you can choose from.
Well, and some of the hang up is because they don't do anything to advertise it. I mean, even tax sale investors, a lot of them don't know about land banks and how to be able to work land banks. So it is kind of a unique investment strategy where there is some investors that are taking advantage of it, but there's a whole bunch that know nothing about it and aren't, implementing that as a strategy.
Yeah, and this one's another one. This one's for sale for 17,000, and also has potential there for to be subdivided.
Yeah, that one would actually work a lot better because you've got road straight to the property, and you could go ahead and you can almost just look at it and see how you could subdivide it, have it go up, come around, and probably put 10 or 15 lots in there pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Is there any bidding for lots with land banks? And so they don't generally sell them like a bid. It's usually an offer system. In the case of, I guess what it really comes down to is each land bank can make their own, kind of decide on their own with the county what they're going to do. In the case of someone like Shelby County, they kind of set the prices so we can see what the prices are for the properties. They basically have uh, a selling price on each one of the properties. So they make it pretty easy. But other land banks, they may do things somewhat differently. A lot of them, though, will just have set prices for the stuff you can buy.
Well, yeah, well, and some will allow you to negotiate. I mean, even Shelby County usually has this list where they drop the prices that they put out, kind of their fire sale each month. At least they used to do that last time I was looking, and they had kind of a fire sale list. And so this is really where you're going to have to go back to the land bank because it'll kind of depend on the land bank. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some land banks that only require you that they'll sell you the house for $1 or for $100, but there's certain things that you've got to do on top of it. So, everyone's going to be a little bit different. Right now, there's Detroit homes that are being auctioned at starting at $1,000. So they're, usually you're going to be buying them kind of in an over-the-counter setting or a offer process setting, but there is some that go ahead and offer them up in auctions. In fact, a couple of months ago, we were looking at an auction that was taking place in Michigan that was through the land bank, where the land bank was selling some properties, which was kind of unique.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and even looking at some of the numbers here, what's interesting about this is that this one kind of the way it's put together, it gives you a preview of the property as well. And so it's an interesting way to go through and to view some of the properties here. I know you can also download the list, the actual an Excel version of the list. I heard that is actually easier to navigate. So yeah, that's also an idea here for some of these. If you want to be able to get through or find specific information or specific types of properties, and the Excel sheets are always going to be probably the easiest or fastest way to do that. But yeah, the prices though, we know that the prices they set in Shelby County with the land bank are at least reasonable enough that the buyers don't typically have a problem selling the properties.
Yeah. Well, and you can look through and determine which one's going to be the best, which one's going to have the best value, which one are they kind of under assessing its value or offering it for a better deal. As we're going through these, there could be one that's that's 30,000 that's way better to pick up at 30,000 than one for 25 because of this. Or maybe there's one at 15 grand that's actually, condition wise is going to be a lot easier to rehab and to fix up. So it's better to pick it up at that. So you can see all of these different properties. Each one's going to have, their own unique things that are going to need to be done to it to put it back into productive use. But we can see which one's going to be more profitable for us.
Yeah, well, and the asking prices range dramatically. There are properties starting for as little as $50 or $100 on this list for pieces of land, and there are properties on this list that start at like $300,000. So it's a huge range of property types if you want to take the time to kind of go through and check them out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before we go ahead and answer questions and kind of finish in the night, we're going to go ahead and look at an upcoming auction. Then we're going to briefly talk about one of the best investing strategies we think for 2026. In fact, we just got done doing a whole training on it with our weekly webinar students, and then we'll go ahead and answer any questions you have. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat section. We'll get to them here in a minute. We spent some time looking at a Washington sale that took place last month. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at an upcoming auction that's taking place on the same auction website. Now this isn't a big auction. I think there's only 6-8 properties, something like that. And I haven't done a whole lot of due diligence on it yet. So we're going to kind of go in there, look at the list, and see what we can find in Clark County, Washington.
All right, let's go and check that out here real quick.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the same website that we were looking at before and start viewing some of the properties on this list. I just briefly kind of looked over it, so this is going to be kind of our view as well. So we may find good properties, we may find bad ones. I'm kind of interested to see what happens.
Yeah, well, there's a total of 8 properties in this sale here. We can see we've got one of them that's redeemed so far. Let's see what these other ones are. All right, so opening bid of 21,000, and no address here on the property. Let's see, but assessed value of 500,000 on the property. Now it doesn't tell us what the acreage is, but it does give us an APN number here. So we'll copy that.
We've also got the GIS, and then you can also see there's a title report.
Yeah, we've got the title report right here.
And this is incredibly helpful. This really helps us with stage 2 due diligence that we talk about, where we've got to go and research for deeds. They have a title search done. We can look through it and see what we're going to need to be aware of. And in fact, some of these title companies will offer title insurance on the property.
Yeah, we can see. So they've got all the taxes that are out here on it. Any other details we need to know?
Let's go ahead and look at the GIS real quick.
Yeah, let's see here. All right, now we've got some of the additional data here, and let's see, the map is got to be
Go ahead
right
and
there.
click on the building right next to the account, kind of up at the top. See where it says building.
Yeah, look at that. It does show the house, and it looks like a nice house. In fact, it was built in 1973. 1,595 square feet. Oh, that's just the main. There's an attached garage there as well.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see that they're giving it an average condition, which is good. You know, we like seeing that better than below average. You can see the layout of the home, you know, what it was built. And you can see some of the different links that we can click on. There's a sales search there, so that if we want to look at properties that have sold, when we try to figure out the value, there's any permits, there's different documents, auditor docs, taxes. And so we have a bunch of the information where we can start researching more into it. We have the address, and then we can check the GIS map as well.
Yeah. So we've got the image of the property right here. The image here, it looks like, let's see, the street side image that we have is from May of 2023, and the property looks like it could be vacant at this time. You know, I mean, it kind of looks unkempt, you know, from the outside, like there's nobody living there. Let's go around the side here and see.
And when was this street view?
May of 2023.
So we're a couple years old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there
Oh,
was
there's a
somebody
car
living there.
there.
Yeah. So it, yeah, they've got like a furry driveway. But yeah, somebody
You know,
was
that
living there.
go back and look at that car real quick. That's been there for a while.
Yeah, it's possible somebody's not living there.
So
They're
it
just
very
using.
well could be vacant. Maybe it was grandma's house, or maybe it was somebody who moved across the country. You know, we're not quite sure what's happened to it, but it looks like that it used to be vacant. They've left some type of property there. And we might be able to see something when we look into the owner's name. You know, it's many times we've been able to look up owner's name and find out that they've passed away, and that gives us an idea of when things might have happened. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's worth, you know, 450 to 500,000. Now it's
Yeah.
probably going to need a lot of work, but with that kind of profit margins in it, you could still pay 200 for it and still make some money on it. You could pay 150 and put 50 to 100 into rehabbing it and still make 200 grand on the deal.
Yeah,
At
and like
least.
while it probably needs some work or some condition, it has been cared for most of its life. You know, you can tell that about it. You know that it's more of a recent issue here, but stuff like the roof looked fine at the time. The exterior looked fine at the time. I mean, the property for the most part looks fine. You know, no real problems here. But the fact, yeah, I mean, it's starting off there for uh, you know, for 20,000, 21,000, and valued there very high. So yeah, you could bid this property up here, and there, yeah, this could be a good one to bid on.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got the information there to do our due diligence beforehand. We'd go ahead and determine what the actual market value is, which would help us set our high bid amount based on the repairs that we're estimating and the cost involved.
Oh, interesting. This one's another $20,000 opening bid amount here, but it says it's valued at 387,000. It doesn't tell us any of the additional data from there.
Yeah, they're really not providing us a lot. We've got to go into the county records to find out more about it.
Yeah, well, let's see. Land value, building value, they've got listed there of 199.
Do they have some photos underneath the building tab?
Yeah, there is, well, an image from 2023.
One thing I notice about that, you can kind of see that this could be an abandoned property as well. Now it's located in Vancouver, so, you know, not a bad area, probably has value that it still makes sense to, you know, finish rehabbing it. But you can't, does look like it could have been definitely neglected and may have been abandoned.
Yeah, it's very overgrown there. You can see it's been something that's been going on here with it for years. Right, May of 2023. Now it could be occupied. That's possible, I suppose, here. You know, they could be parking in front of it.
What is on the ground there on the driveway?
I don't know. I can't really tell. It's just brown.
Oh, it's like moss or something.
Yeah,
Looks like
yeah.
the driveway's cracked and, stuff has grown through it. But look around the neighborhood a little bit. It looks to be kind of the trashiest home on the block.
Oh, by
So
far. It's by
the
far the
neighbors
trashiest home.
would love to
Yeah.
have it. And, we were talking about this the other day on one of our trainings where, in this kind of situation, we're buying, out of state, we may not have that option. But if you're to go view this home in person and take on-site photos yourself, and you see one of the neighbors or talk to one of the neighbors, they can give you the skinny. We have found more about property by talking to the neighbors about when somebody lived there last, what happened, any drama, which can help us make a lot better informed decision. In fact, most of the neighbors are glad that somebody is taking ownership or interested in the property to help beautify the property, which is going to help their whole neighborhood look better.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's usually their biggest concern is just that nobody's doing anything with it. It's an issue of neglect. More than anything. You've got a building lot there that's opening up for 5,400, valued maybe at 50,000. Let's see. There's another $20,000 one here. At 361. Interesting. All right, let me just grab that real quick. And let's see. Oh, look at that one. That one looks awfully new.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it looks real good.
so this was a condo unit. It says here, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo unit, 1,300 square feet. Yeah, the condition here is average. Here, let me just.
Now, one thing with a condo unit is we're always going to contact the condo association before buying. It's going to save you a whole lot of headache if you do that before you buy versus after you buy. Let them know who you are, what you're looking to do, and see if they can give you any additional information. You're going to want to find out what fees, and you're going to want to see how workable they are. After you purchase the property, how workable they're going to be in working with you. In most states, HOAs aren't going to stick to the property, but that doesn't mean the HOA can't make your life miserable. So it's going to be beneficial for you to give them a quick call. It's going to give you information about the property you're not going to be able to find from any other source. Plus, you can probably try to get in good with them that if you do end up winning the property, you've already got a leg in the door.
It's interesting here. These are valued quite high. These similar units like this, I think, are valued pretty high. But I think we have interior images of this one from this last time.
That is really nice.
Yeah, it is. It's a really nice little gated community here. And it doesn't tell us here when it sold last. Considering where it's starting at here and what some of the other units are at, I mean, it's starting for 20,000, and it looks like these units are worth about 375,000 to 400,000.
Yeah. What did Redfin give it?
Oh, actually, I did not pull up here on Redfin yet. Let me do it here. And they put it at 411. Yeah, it was built in 2000. It really is. It's pretty well new.
Look at the notes right there.
Oh, it's weird only sending those.
Yeah, that is weird. I noticed up at the top that it said sold.
Yeah, when did it sell?
That's what I'm trying to see. You can see the about home. It's like, usually you should be able to drop that down, or it has all the information. Oh, December?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's not when it sold.
Oh, no.
It was 246 since it last sold. So it's been probably 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
You
And
know, but
yes,
you can see all this additional helpful information about market trends within the area.
yeah, we see some of the other details for the property tax information, some other properties that are currently for sale. The prices are definitely going up, you know, in these areas. I mean, other similar properties are selling for the higher prices. You know, you see some of these go up as high as 459,
Yeah, look at
465 and
that.
up.
The sell to list price, they're getting 99.6% of their sales price, and they're averaging 27 days on the market.
Yeah, that's a hot market.
That is a hot market.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, well, let's see this here. Well, yeah, we looked at 3 or 4 of the properties out of the 8 that are there, and they all looked pretty good. I'll bet there's more opportunities in that sale.
Yeah, it's always interesting to look at these auctions, and if we were interested, we can go ahead and see when the deposit, in this case, they have a $2,500 deposit that's due. We'd get registered in time. And the good thing about the deposit is we're going to get that back. You know, if we're doing an auction like in real auction, we may be able to just roll that over to the next auction if we're looking at a location-based investment. And so there's so many opportunities, and now is really the best time to get involved in tax sale investing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about what we think is the best strategy for 2026 for tax sale investors to get started with. And then we're going to go ahead and answer any questions you guys have, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, which ultimately, what the real opportunity is with pre-foreclosure investing with tax sale properties, and specifically with land. There is a if there's anybody doing it, we're unaware of it and who they are. There may be people that do some amount of pre-foreclosure investing in tax sales. It's very common with bank foreclosures, but less so with tax sales. And we've never seen anybody that's doing it with land. And what that means is that any of the people that have lots, you know, in these counties that are about to lose their property to the auction, they don't really have anybody approaching them trying to get them to you know, work out some kind of a deal to pay off their property taxes and to sell the property. And that's ultimately what we are looking to do. Is they're motivated sellers, you know, that are about to lose the property due to the tax foreclosure. And so if we can step in right before that, we can pay off the taxes, you know, be able to put some money in their pocket and pick the property up for a lower price than we could pick it up if we had tried to buy it through auction. And one of the greatest benefits of all of this is that we get to do it before the property actually goes through foreclosure. So instead of getting a tax deed, we're actually going to get a warranty deed out of this. So there's nothing to fix or repair. We have a clear title with a transaction like this.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to kind of give you guys a little history, about 20 years ago, you know, me and Shade were creating our home study program, and we created our investor profile system. So anyone that's a member knows that we have 8 different profile types, and each one of those is a strategy with states that you can utilize that strategy. And when we first created our investor profile system, one of our profiles was the pre-auction investor. Now, with the pre-auction investor, this is somebody who is contacting the property owner before the auction takes place and offers to buy their property. Now, this works on any type of property. It can work on land, it can work on commercial property, it can work on homes. In fact, in our membership program, we teach 2 different types of ways to be able to buy this structured property or commercial property, or buy it with land. And there's a huge opportunity right now to learn how to be able to do this, send out letters, contact these individuals, and buy them. Because a tax sale property that's coming up for auction, that owner is probably one of the most motivated owners that we can find. So there's different strategies out there about sending mailers to random people, you know, and trying to find people to list your home or buy their property. Here we're talking about some of the most motivated people in the country that are looking to sell their property. And so if we have all of these motivated people that are just sitting there ready to buy, to sell their property, why aren't we contacting them and working out a deal to buy the property before the auction takes place?
Yeah, especially with people that have just land, they may not really know what they can do with it, what their options are. In other words, on selling it might not be something that they really know what to do, what the first steps, it would be. So being able to reach out to them specifically and offer them a way out is something we think you'll get a response on from people that are looking for a way out, and you'll be able to help them. You'll be able to help them avoid the foreclosure, put some money in their pocket, and you'll be able to get a good deal on the property that you'll have clear title on. So that will also be, again, one of the benefits here of doing this is being able to get clear title on everything you buy. It's not a tax sale property; it's just a regular warranty deed. So, that part of it is probably one of the best benefits here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we think it's going to be a great year. We're predicting a really good year with tax sale investing. And even if the general real estate market slows down and, and things happen like they always do, for tax sale investing, many times that's where more money can be made. In fact, during the last recession, when it was bad for real estate market, when it was bad for businesses, really tax sale investing, there was some of the best deals that we saw in the last 25 years taking place at that time. And so utilizing online auctions, utilizing over the counters that we talked about tonight, and using pre-foreclosure strategies, these are 3 ways that we can acquire property for highly discounted prices, where we could turn around and sell these properties and make profit. If we want to do rentals, that's a possibility. And so, with some work and some effort and being creative, that's how we can go through and find these different type of properties and take advantage of them.
Yeah, which is basically, sorry, I should have been moving through the slides here as we were going through that. I was actually looking, and Elizabeth had some great points. The property that we were looking at here earlier, the one that was the mobile home, where it said the mobile home wasn't included in the purchase. I thought that was interesting here because Melissa noticed something. I'm sorry, Elizabeth noticed something on it here when we were looking at it, and that was she was saying that it doesn't make a lot of sense if the mobile home's not included, because it was a black label property, and so there was no transportation. It was going to move that. And I asked her what she meant by that, because I didn't really know. And it was interesting. She said that she owned a mobile home with land in Florida, and the black label is registration that confirms that the mobile home is real property and it's attached to the land, so it can't be moved. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It's something, again, whoops, you wouldn't know it here unless you were living in Florida there and owned properties and knew about the black label thing. But I thought that was an interesting fact and something worth knowing.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, and maybe, somehow you are able to still acquire the mobile home. Maybe they don't have the title to it or whatever. I don't think I've seen that. I've seen before where mobile homes aren't included, or they sell mobile homes separately. In fact, we put out a video a little while ago about how to be able to buy mobile homes that are considered personal property. So like mobile home and mobile home parks, there's a lot of those opportunities. And in Washington is actually a good state for this. Illinois and a number of different states where you can buy personal property, but many times in the tax sale, the properties that we're looking at, the mobile home is actually considered real property. So that is interesting.
Yeah, we really appreciate your participation in this. We will get a recording of this out to, we'll try to get a recording out to everybody. But we appreciate everybody's participation in this, your great questions. You guys have been great tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's anyone that's interested, we still have a ticket or 2 left for our 3-day training that we'll be teaching this weekend in Orange County. So if you're in the area, if you'd like to come, let us know and we can get you the discounted ticket, 70% off for $299.
Yeah, but hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will be back again, for the next episode.
Yep, thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you later.